There's always someone watching from the shadows of the stars, not just lurking in the dark like the other princes, but truly watching, quiet, still, and endlessly patient. You won't always hear her name, you might never see her shrine, but when things begin to change in Tamriel, when kings fall, when heroes rise, when the veil between moments thins, she's already there. Watching, waiting. Azura isn't like the others. She doesn't demand conquest like Mehrunes Dagon, doesn't twist the world with riddles like Sheogorath, and doesn't hide behind layers of betrayal like Mephala. Azura waits for a moment, a precise, perfect second, where the fate of an entire people can shift with a whisper. Her presence is found in dreams that feel too vivid, stars that seem to flicker with purpose, and voices that speak softly before the dawn of something bigger than any mortal can see. And once you know what to look for, you start to realize she's never really gone. Because Azura is the Daedric Prince of Dusk and Dawn, but that's just the surface. She is transition itself, between day and night, between life and death, between what was and what will be. Every great change in Tamriel's history has a shadow cast over it, and if you look closely enough, you'll notice it always stretches in the same direction. Towards Azura. Take Morrowind, for example. The rise of the Tribunal wasn't just divine ambition, it was the outcome of a curse carefully delivered, not out of cruelty, but out of principle. Azura saw betrayal and gave it a consequence. And centuries later, that curse became a prophecy, and that prophecy gave birth to the Nerevarine. She didn't send armies, she sent a dream and a whisper, and that was enough to change the world. But her reach doesn't end in the Red Mountain. In every corner of Tamriel, at every tipping point, Azura finds a way to touch the story. In Oblivion, while the other princes tore through the veil and shattered cities, Azura quietly granted peace to her last mortal servants. She offered a gift that felt out of place in a world unraveling, stillness, mercy, and truth. In Skyrim, her star still shone. Her voice still echoed through the snow. A Daedric artifact that asked not for blood or fear, but for belief. Not every player followed her path, but those who did always notice the same thing. Something about Azura felt different. Not good, not evil, but something more focused, more deliberate. Her visions aren't just dreams, they're warnings. Her prophecies aren't riddles, they're preparations. And when mortals listen, they survive. Maybe not unscathed, but alive. She's never loud, never showy, but her silence has weight. The kind of weight that means when you hear her speak, you know it matters. So the question isn't whether Azura has influenced Tamriel. The real question is whether Tamriel has ever moved without her letting it. Across eras, empires, and Elder Scrolls themselves, she has shaped fates without ever needing to fight for them. Some worship her, some fear her. Most don't realize how close she's always been. But those who've seen her signs, stars out of alignment, dreams that know too much, paths that don't make sense until they do, they understand. Azura's domain isn't chaos or madness or violence. It's foresight, it's transition, it's the unshakable truth that change always comes, and someone has to decide what direction it moves in. Has she been quietly steering Tamriel since the beginning? All signs point to yes, and if you've never noticed, it's only because she didn't want you to. Because Azura doesn't shout, she doesn't rage, she doesn't demand, she whispers. And if you hear her, then your part in her story has already begun. Because she's always watching, eyes open, waiting for the next moment to turn. The stars never blink, and neither does she. Azura is often introduced as the Daedric Prince of Dusk and Dawn, but that title barely scratches the surface of what she truly represents. She doesn't control the night or the day. She governs the space between them, the fleeting, fragile moments of change when the world seems to hold its breath. She's not about endings or beginnings, but about the instant where one becomes the other, and that makes her domain far more powerful than it first appears. Because it's in those moments, in the hesitation before a sword is drawn, in the silence between a question and its answer, in the stillness before an empire falls, that fate is decided. Azura doesn't need to reshape the world like Dagon, or twist reality like Hermaeus Mora. She waits for the right moment and then whispers, and suddenly, nothing is the same. That's why she's so hard to define. Her power isn't flashy. It's not about destruction, or indulgence, or dominion. It's about timing. She understands that prophecy is not about seeing the future, it's about knowing when to act so the future you want becomes inevitable. Her followers know this too. They aren't conquerors or zealots. They're seers, outcasts, wanderers who've glimpsed the truth in a dream and can't shake it, and Azura speaks to them not because they're strong, but because they're listening. Her influence doesn't announce itself. It seeps in slowly, often without anyone noticing until it's too late. She doesn't stand at the front of great battles or orchestrate grand betrayals. She's present in the build-up, the hesitation, the quiet decisions that lead to something far larger than anyone intended. When the tribunal stole godhood, Azura didn't strike them down. She marked them, cursed them not with fire or torment, but with truth and prophecy. She waited, knowing that one day someone would rise to fulfill the role she had set in motion. That kind of patience is rare among the princes. Azura isn't interested in forcing change. She's only interested in making sure it arrives at the moment she chooses. And that's what makes her so unnerving. Other princes offer clear bargains: power for servitude, madness for escape, blood for strength. Azura offers clarity. That can be a gift or a curse, depending on what you see when the fog lifts. She doesn't manipulate events like Boethia, or wrap them in riddles like Mephala. She places a mirror in front of you and lets you see what's coming. Whether you run from it or walk toward it, that's your choice. But you can't say she didn't show you. In every era, when the tides of history begin to turn, Azura is already watching. She doesn't spark the war, but she's there in the peace before it. She doesn't end the empire, but she's there the moment its last good ruler stares into the sunset and realizes their time has passed. It's not always obvious, but that's the point. You don't recognize change while it's happening. Only afterward, when the dust has settled and the world has reshaped itself, do you look back and see her fingerprints. She doesn't need worshippers in every temple or champions in every city. Her influence isn't about quantity, it's about precision. A single vision delivered to a sleeping outlander, a moment of doubt in a would-be god, a star that burns a little too bright the night before everything changes. Azura doesn't need to control the story. She just needs to be there at the right time to nudge it in the direction she's already foreseen. That's why her power unnerves even the other princes. They rule realms of madness and hunger and knowledge, but Azura rules the one thing they can't predict, the in-between, that space where fate hasn't settled yet. That's her kingdom. And if you ever find yourself standing at the edge of a decision you can't explain, with a voice in the back of your mind guiding your steps, there's a good chance you're not alone. Because that's when she's strongest, not in the moment you strike, but in the one just before, when you still have a choice, when the world could go either way. That's the moment she lives in. And it's the moment that changes everything. When the tribunal betrayed Nerevar and took the heart of Lorcan for themselves, they didn't just steal divinity, they set in motion a slow-burning rebellion, and Azura was the one holding the match. She didn't strike them down in rage, didn't scream vengeance across the skies. Instead, she whispered a curse, a quiet, devastating sentence that would stretch across centuries. She marked their transformation, not with death, but with destiny. She took their stolen power and twisted it into prophecy. She cursed them to walk as gods, but live as liars, forever hunted by the shadow of their own crime. And while they built temples and rewrote history, Azura waited, not out of spite, but out of certainty. She knew what was coming, and she made sure the world would be ready when it did. Everything that unfolded in Morrowind began with that moment. The curse wasn't just words, it was a blueprint. Azura didn't just punish the tribunal, she set the conditions for their undoing. She planted the seeds of the Nerevarines' return, long before anyone even knew they'd bloom. She scattered prophecies through Velothi texts, spread whispers through Ashlander tribes, and stirred visions in dreamers who had never seen Red Mountain. Her hand guided the timing, the omens, the awakening of a forgotten soul, and all of it happened without a single sword drawn in her name. Azura doesn't deal in brute force. She doesn't need armies or thrones. What she needs is one moment, one person, and the right time. When the tribunal's power began to falter, when Dagoth-Ur stirred beneath Red Mountain and corrupted gods and mortals alike, Azura was already watching. The dreams that tormented the people weren't just from Dagoth-Ur, they were layered, tangled, sometimes terrifying and sometimes clarifying. They guided the Nerevarine step by step, not through control, but through understanding. Azura made sure the reincarnated soul of Nerevar would have a path forward, lit by prophecy and memory. Even the Ashlanders, long scorned and forgotten, had kept her truth alive. They held to the old ways, not just out of tradition, but because they knew something deeper. They knew Azura hadn't left them. And when the world had stopped believing, she still believed in them. Every turning point in Morrowind carries her touch. The Tribunal's decline, Vivek's hidden fear, Almalexia's unraveling desperation, Sothasil's silence, they're all symptoms of the same curse. It didn't destroy them overnight. It made them rot from within. It forced them to see the limits of their stolen godhood, to face the truth that they had betrayed not only their friend, but the very people they claimed to uplift. And all the while, Azura kept her distance. She didn't rescue the Nerevarine. She didn't smite Dagothur. She revealed the path, tested their resolve, and let the prophecy unfold. That's the thing about her influence. It's never loud, but it's always there. The moon and star that marks the Nerevarine, the guidance through dreams, the way the pieces fall into place when they need to. That's her rebellion. Silent, precise, and inevitable. She never needed to lift a blade. All she had to do was wait for pride to collapse under the weight of truth. And when the Nerevarine stood in the hard chamber, faced with gods and monsters, and the end of an age, Azura's presence was felt, not as a command, but as a question. Now that you know the truth, what will you do? That's always been her method. She doesn't force salvation. She offers it, cloaked in riddles and wrapped in quiet certainty. In Morrowind, she proved that the most devastating revolution doesn't come from war. It comes from belief. She changed the world not by seizing it, but by reminding it of what it had forgotten. That's the power of a Daedra who governs the in-between. While others chase dominion, Azura waits for the moment when the world is ready to shift, and then she's already there. That's why her curse wasn't just vengeance, it was a prophecy. One that didn't just punish the tribunal, but prepared Tamriel for the return of truth. Most Daedric quests lead to madness, cruelty, or corruption. You find shrines to forgotten powers who demand blood, lies, or destruction in exchange for gifts that only deepen the chaos. But then there's Azura's Shrine. Hidden in the mountains of Cyrodiil, far from cities and politics, it sits quiet and cold beneath the stars. When you find it, there's no grand speech, no threats, no riddles laced with venom, just a quiet voice, full of sadness, and something heavier, mercy. Her worshippers, the last true followers still clinging to her light in a world on fire, don't beg for power, they beg for release. They were cursed by dreams, visions that no one else believed. For years they've suffered, haunted by whispers and memories that don't fade, trapped in a cycle they don't understand. And when Azura finally speaks, she doesn't ask you to punish them or save them. She asks you to free them. That's the heart of her quest. Not dominance or spectacle, but closure. She sends you to deal with her own followers, not because they failed her, but because they've served her too well for too long. They've become something between mortal and memory, frozen in a dream they can't wake from, and now they beg to sleep forever. So you go. You face them, these quiet souls who once danced beneath stars and now live only in half-remembered visions. You fight them, not out of hatred, but because it's the only way left to bring them peace. And when it's done, when the silence settles, Azura keeps her word. She gives you her star, one of the most powerful artifacts in the world, but it doesn't feel like a reward. It feels like a burial gift, something to remember them by. That's what makes this moment stand out. During the Oblivion Crisis, Daedric princes rip open the sky, throw Tamriel into chaos, unleash legions of flame and claw and shadow. They revel in destruction. They laugh as cities burn and heroes die. But Azura stays still. She doesn't demand blood. She doesn't spread fear. She watches, she grieves, and she offers one quiet task: to give rest to the lost and to carry her gift forward. Her artifact, Azura's Star, isn't just a tool, it's a mirror. It reflects her role in the world, quiet, eternal, and enduring. While others chase conquest, she tends to endings. Not the dramatic kind, but the slow, inevitable kind that most overlook. She honors will, honors choices, and most of all, she honors those who remember. That's why her presence during the Oblivion Crisis is so unique. She doesn't oppose Mehrunes Dagon directly, but her contrast is striking. While he burns everything in his path, Azura safeguards the last remnants of peace, of memory, of dreams not yet corrupted. Her shrine doesn't stand in defiance, it endures. And that endurance is its own kind of rebellion. In a time when gods become monsters and mortals lose themselves in chaos, Azura remains a fixed point, a star that doesn't move, even when the world collapses around it. Her quest doesn't shout for attention, it whispers, gently pulling you away from the storm to remind you that not all power is loud, and not all Daedra are lost to madness. She remains one of the only princes who understands the value of grace and the cost of being forgotten. That's why her influence is so lasting. She doesn't chase dominion. She guides transitions, life to death, mortal to myth, dusk to dawn. And in the middle of a crisis that tore the world open, she offered something no other Daedra did: mercy. Not pity, not weakness, just a quiet acceptance that even the devoted must rest. That's what made her shrine unforgettable. Not because it changed the course of the war, but because it refused to be part of it. It chose stillness, and that choice meant everything. In the freezing wind of Skyrim, where gods are questioned and the old ways fade, Azura still lingers, not in force, not in armies, but in whispers and memory, carried by a single voice that refuses to fade. Her shrine stands silent and ancient on the snow-covered cliffs of Winterhold, carved from the rock, gazing out at the endless sky. It doesn't cry for attention, it waits. And the one who tends it, Arania Aeneth, waits with it. A Dunmer priestess, far from home, standing vigil in a land that no longer cares for the stars. She speaks of visions and destiny, not with fanaticism, but with conviction, as if she knows something the rest of Skyrim has forgotten. When you approach, Azura has already reached out. She saw you coming. A mortal with a choice, wrapped in prophecy, like so many before. She doesn't demand, she asks. Her artifact, Azura's star, has been corrupted, twisted into something unnatural. What was once a vessel for pure souls is now a cage that traps them. She sends you after it, not to claim power, but to restore balance, to make right what was defiled. The trail leads to Nelacar, a former mage of the College of Winterhold, bitter and disillusioned. He sees Azura not as a guiding star, but as a manipulator, a relic of superstition. He offers an alternative: fix the star through his knowledge, not her will. And in that moment, Azura's quest becomes something deeper. It's no longer about the artifact, it's about you. It's about who you trust, what you believe, and where you draw the line between faith and pragmatism. Nelacar offers practicality, an unbound star that serves your will, efficient and impersonal. Arania offers devotion, a star purified, sacred, tied to something greater than yourself. You're not tested in combat, you're tested in belief. Do you see Azura's hand as guidance or as manipulation? Do you walk away with a tool or a gift? The artifact itself becomes a reflection of that decision. The Black Star is powerful, no question, capable of trapping the most twisted of souls. But it carries weight. The souls inside scream, they beg, and even when they're silent, you feel them. Azura's star, pure and white, remains a vessel for light, for natural death, for endings that honor the soul. Both are effective, but only one carries peace. And Arania, if you choose her path, she remains by your side. She doesn't disappear when the quest ends. She offers to walk with you, to serve, to guide, not as a follower of convenience, but as a believer who sees something in you that echoes through time. She never forgets what you did, and her loyalty isn't bought, it's earned. Through her, Azura remains a thread woven through the north, invisible but unbroken. The world moves on, dragons return, empires shift, but her presence never fades. She is not loud. She doesn't seek worship through fear or grand displays. She influences through people, through moments, through choices that don't seem like much until you realize how far they've reached. That's how Azura works, not with thunder, but with starlight. Subtle, patient, eternal. Skyrim is a land of loud voices and ancient power struggles, yet somehow it's Azura's quiet that cuts through. Her quest doesn't ask you to change the world. It asks you to listen, to trust, to choose, and to carry something forward. And when it's done, when the star is restored or corrupted, she doesn't praise or punish. She simply watches, waiting, because she knows the story isn't over. Her role isn't to rule or destroy, but to remind that what you choose matters, that belief is still power, that the gods aren't gone, they're just quieter now. And Azura, she never stopped watching. During the chaos of the interregnum, as alliances crumbled and empires vanished into memory, Azura did not command armies or reshape the land. She whispered instead. Her hand in the Elder Scrolls Online isn't obvious, unless you know what to look for. She doesn't appear constantly, nor does she offer aid freely. But when she does move, it's with purpose, and the consequences are felt long after her presence fades. One of the most striking examples is her role in guiding the Vestige during the Daedric Wars in Vardenfell. While others were distracted by political squabbles and temporal power, Azura turned her gaze toward a deeper threat, one that tied directly to the roots of the tribunal and the old betrayals beneath Red Mountain. Her involvement wasn't dramatic. She didn't shout, she didn't summon storms. Instead, she appeared in visions and dreams, reaching out when the moment demanded clarity, when no one else could see the pattern unfolding. She guided mortals not because she had to, but because she knew what ignoring it would cost. Azura's interaction with Sotasil is another rare but telling moment. One of the most enigmatic figures in the Elder Scrolls universe, Sotasil rarely acknowledged other Daedra as equals, let alone treated them with deference. But Azura held a different place in his perception. He didn't trust her, but he respected her, because unlike the others, she played a longer game, one rooted not in domination, but in inevitability. She warned him of the coming unraveling, the betrayal within his own realm, and though he dismissed her at the time, it was her warning that lingered. Azura's influence in Izo isn't about leading players from quest to quest. It's about laying out the framework that explains why things happen the way they do. When Molag Bal launches the Planameld, Azura doesn't challenge him directly. She knows that's not her role. But she ensures that key players are in the right place at the right time to keep his influence from spreading unchecked. When Clavicus Vile and Mephala begin to move, weaving chaos across Tamriel, it's Azura who provides the insight necessary to understand their motives, to see their traps before they're fully sprung. Even her absence is part of her message. She doesn't micromanage fate. She trusts those she chooses to act on their own once they've been shown just enough to change the course of events. She offers knowledge, not orders, a path, not a leash. And in a world where nearly every Daedric prince seeks control, that restraint is what makes her influence so powerful. Her actions ripple out subtly. She saves cities not by intervening directly, but by ensuring the right minds are prepared to make the hard decisions. She prevents disasters by planting seeds of doubt or clarity in those standing at the edge of catastrophe, and she offers comfort, not always gentle, but always honest, to those burdened by impossible choices. Azura in the Interregnum is like a shadow at the edge of firelight, always just out of reach, always watching. Her moments in the story come and go quickly, but each one connects to something far bigger. She doesn't need to be present to matter, because by the time you realize she was involved, you're already part of the outcome she envisioned. Even the player's journey, fragmented as it is, across alliances and continents, is touched by her. In Stonefalls, in Cold Harbor, in the Clockwork City, there are hints, whispers, signs, not enough to overwhelm, but enough to connect the dots for those paying attention. She never forgets the past, and she never ignores the future. She simply waits for the right moment. And when that moment comes, her voice cuts through the noise, like a thread through a tapestry. Always deliberate, always quiet, but never random. The interregnum was a time of noise, of kings shouting, Daedra raging, and chaos spreading like wildfire. But through it all, Azura remained the voice in the night. The one who spoke only when it mattered, who appeared only when the balance threatened to tip too far, and when the world moved on, as it always does, she remained. Not forgotten, not erased, just silent once more, until the stars shift again. Azura, Boethia, and Mephala are often spoken of in the same breath, the three good Daedra of the Chimer, once revered as spiritual guides before the tribunal rose to power. But while they share ancient ties and a place in Velothi history, their paths and intentions couldn't be more different. Azura, in particular, stands apart in how she chooses to shape the world. where Boethia incites revolution and thrives on struggle, and Mephala weaves secrets and treachery through mortal hearts. Azura seeks something quieter, not peace, but clarity, not dominance, but direction. Her realm is twilight, yes, but it's not just the visual transition between night and day. It's the space between understanding and confusion, between what was and what's becoming. While Boethia would tear down a structure just to see if something stronger rises, Azura would rather ensure the transition doesn't destroy what's essential in the process. That fundamental difference in philosophy shows up throughout Tamriel's history. Boethia was the spark behind the Chimer's exodus from Somerset, challenging the Aedra's authority and pushing her followers to cast aside the chains of their Altmeri past. Mephala offered the tools of deception and manipulation, crafting the earliest Dunmeri houses through whispered lies and shadowed moves. But Azura offered the dream, the prophecy of what they might become. She didn't command the rebellion or architect its schemes. She watched, she guided, and when the moment called for it, she cursed or blessed with perfect precision. Her response to the tribunal's betrayal wasn't a scream or a campaign of revenge. It was a long, quiet curse, one that stretched across generations, shaping the destiny of Morrowind without ever taking the stage. Boethia and Mephala would have confronted the tribunal directly, with blades and schemes. Azura let time carry her message. Her influence doesn't come from confrontation, it comes from inevitability. And that difference is what makes her presence feel so distinct. When you encounter Azura, it never feels like she's forcing your hand. It feels like she's already seen where you're going, and she's just helping you step into it with your eyes open. That's a stark contrast to Mephala, whose influence is always hidden behind masks and webs. Mephala's guidance comes at a cost. You never know if you're playing your own game or hers. With Azura, even when her motives are unclear, you never doubt that she believes in what she's doing. She doesn't lie. She doesn't lure. She presents the truth, even when it's painful, and lets you decide. And that, more than anything, defines her divergence from her ancient kin. In Skyrim, her artifact, Azura's Star, is a vessel of reflection, not just a soul gem, but a test of morality. Nelacar and Arania represent that fork in the road, not just in who controls the artifact, but in how you perceive Azura's role. Nelacar sees her as a manipulative force, interfering where she doesn't belong. Arania sees her as a guardian, a guiding star in dark times. Both views come from experience, and neither is entirely wrong. But the choice you make doesn't change Azura's nature. It reveals your own. Boethia's followers seek strength through trial, Mephala's through subtlety and dominance. Azura offers something different, vision, and that's what makes her such an important part of the Daedric landscape. She doesn't seek to dominate, to disrupt, or to deceive. She exists in the spaces between those extremes, bringing balance without force. Even her most powerful acts, like setting the Nerevarine on the path to Red Mountain, don't feel like control. They feel like inevitability, like the pieces had been arranged long before the player ever stepped into the world. And maybe that's why her opposition to Boetia and Mephala is so subtle. It's not open conflict. It's a difference in how to shape the world. One through upheaval, one through secrets, and one through understanding. She doesn't stop them, because she doesn't need to. She simply offers an alternative, one that doesn't rely on strength or deception, but on clarity and destiny. And when Tamriel trembles on the edge of another turning point, it's often Azura who speaks first, not with thunder or lies, but with a vision, quiet, unwavering, and inevitable. In that way, her subtle opposition isn't just about her actions, it's about her nature. She's the space between gods and mortals, between endings and beginnings. And where Boethia and Mephala twist that space into challenge or manipulation, Azura illuminates it. Not to blind you, but to help you see, Azura's presence is unlike most Daedric princes. You won't find her rallying armies or demanding sacrifices in grand temples built to her glory. Instead, her influence is subtle, woven through moments that barely catch the attention of mortals, until they've already changed everything. It's in the dreams that visit restless sleepers, the quiet visions that linger at the edge of awareness, and the small signs that guide choices when no one else is watching. For many, encountering Azura isn't about power or fear, it's about being heard. She listens in ways others don't. When you follow her path, it's never shouted. It's whispered in a language only a few can understand, carried on the wind or hidden in the stars. Those who serve her often speak of dreams, filled with starlight and shadow, memories that don't belong to them but feel urgent, impossible to ignore. These aren't visions meant to terrify or confuse, but to prepare, to guide through moments when fate hangs in balance. Azura's mark is found in the quiet decisions, choosing the right path in a dark forest, trusting a stranger's warning, or holding on to hope when all seems lost. Her guidance isn't forceful, it's a gentle nudge, a hint that something unseen is watching, waiting, and caring just enough to steer the world back on course. This influence stretches across ages and places. Azura's reach is felt in subtle ways. She doesn't need grand monuments or armies to prove her presence. Instead, she exists in the hearts of those who remember, those who listen for the quiet signals that others dismiss as coincidence or madness. Her followers are often few, scattered, and humble. They don't seek glory or power, but carry a trust that what they experience matters. They honor her not with fanfare, but with understanding, the knowledge that even the smallest dream can carry the weight of destiny. In the stories passed down by Ashlander tribes, in the whispered prayers of secretive cults, and in the private moments of heroes who glimpse the impossible, Azura's influence is alive. She is the unseen hand behind great events, the silent witness to the turning of ages. When the Nerevarine walked the ash wastes, it was her prophecy that guided the steps. When the blight spread, her dreams offered clarity amid chaos. When the world faced threats that could not be stopped by swords or magic alone, her quiet voice was there to remind mortals that the future isn't shaped by force alone. It's shaped by belief, by choices made in darkness, and by trust in the unseen. Azura's role is not to command but to empower. She does not demand worship through fear or gifts, but offers understanding to those willing to see beyond the surface. Her presence in the mortal world is like a distant star, always there, even when hidden by clouds, offering a fixed point for those lost in the night. This is why many feel that Azura truly listens. She doesn't interrupt with thunderous decrees or impossible demands. Instead, she waits patiently, knowing that the right moment, the right person, will come. And when they do, her guidance is ready, quiet, clear, and powerful in its subtlety. Azura's power lies in what she does not do as much as in what she does. She does not seek dominion or destruction. Instead, she shapes the invisible threads that connect mortals to fate and the divine. Her influence is found not in the loud clash of armies or the blaze of ritual, but in the soft touch of intuition that changes the course of history. To experience Azura is to feel seen in a way few others allow. It is to recognize that sometimes the greatest power comes not from taking, but from giving space. Space to grow, to choose, and to become. Her legacy endures because she understands the delicate balance between guiding and controlling, between destiny and free will. In a world filled with gods who demand, punish, or rule, Azura offers something rare, a presence that listens, waits, and trusts. That quiet trust echoes in the lives of mortals long after her name is spoken, a reminder that even in silence, influence can be absolute, and belief can be the strongest force of all. Azura isn't just a Daedric prince watching from the sidelines. She's something far more complex, a fate weaver silently stitching the threads of destiny, long before anyone even realizes their lives are part of a larger pattern. It's a strange, unsettling thought to consider that what feels like free will, like chance encounters and choices made in the moment, might actually be moves in a game she's already charted out. When you walk through Tamriel, when you pick up a quest or make a decision, Azura's presence lingers, not as a force pushing or pulling, but as the quiet hand weaving everything together behind the scenes. She watches, she listens, and she knows. The Elder Scrolls themselves are proof of that. These mysterious artifacts don't just predict the future, they record it, reveal it, and sometimes even shape it. Azura, more than any other Daedric prince, has a connection to these scrolls that runs deeper than anyone else. She doesn't merely observe fate, she preserves it, guards it, and understands that every hero who rises, every great event that shakes the world, is part of a story written in advance. That raises a haunting question. What if your story is already written? What if the choices you believe are yours are actually echoes of a destiny she foresees? Azura's power isn't in changing fate, but in knowing it so completely that she can guide it without ever making herself obvious. The heroes you've met, the ones who faced impossible odds and changed Tamriel's course, maybe she already saw them coming, knew their struggles before they began, watched their paths unfold like stars aligning in the night sky. And if that's true, then maybe she's already waiting for the next hero, the one who hasn't yet realized their place in this grand design, the one who will rise from the shadows of obscurity to face challenges that no one else can. Azura's star, her artifact, isn't just a tool or a prize, it's a symbol of that silent knowledge. It carries the weight of countless stories, the souls of those who came before, and the promise of those yet to come. To hold Azura's star is to hold a piece of destiny itself, a reminder that fate is never random, and that even the smallest action might be part of a plan older than time. This makes every encounter with her feel different. It's not about power or domination, but about understanding your place in a story that's bigger than yourself. It's about realizing that when you think you're making a choice, Azura might already have seen the outcome and is simply waiting for you to step into your role. There's no grand spectacle or sudden revelation, just the quiet, unshakable feeling that something ancient and immense is watching, shaping, and waiting. Some say she's merciful, others call her distant, but maybe that distance is because she knows what's coming and respects the need for mortals to walk their path on their own. She doesn't force events, she lets the story unfold, guiding it like a steady current beneath the surface. So, when you face the impossible, when you find yourself standing at a crossroads with the weight of the world on your shoulders, remember that Azura might already know what you'll choose. She may be waiting, watching from the shadows, quietly weaving the fate of the next hero who will rise. And in that thought lies both comfort and unease. The comfort that you're never truly alone in your journey, and the unease that your journey might not be as free as you believe. Azura's role as the Fate Weaver reminds us that the line between destiny and free will is thinner than we think, and sometimes the greatest power is simply knowing when to let the story be told. Azura's presence in Tamriel is unlike any other Daedric prince, because she doesn't seek to dominate or demand tribute in loud displays of power. Her influence isn't measured in armies or devastation, but in subtle moments, quiet nudges that shape the course of history without fanfare. You won't find her sending legions to crush cities or unleashing chaos for its own sake. Instead, she moves through dreams, visions, and whispered warnings that only a few can perceive, those who are meant to carry her message forward. When you come across her shrines, whether high on a mountain or hidden deep in the woods, the feeling isn't one of fear or urgency, but of calm inevitability, as if you've stumbled onto something that has always been there, quietly waiting. The followers who serve her are not the kind who seek power or glory, but those burdened with prophecy, people haunted by dreams they barely understand, searching for meaning in a world that often feels indifferent. Azura's quests don't push heroes toward conquest or revenge. Instead, they guide toward endings, closure for restless souls, balance for broken artifacts, peace for those caught between worlds. Her artifact, Azura's star, is no mere tool for destruction, but a vessel of purity and release, holding the essence of trapped souls so they can finally rest. Through this, she reminds us that her power lies in mercy and remembrance, honoring the natural flow of life and death rather than disrupting it. Unlike other princes who revel in chaos, Azura's role is that of a guardian of transitions, moments where one phase ends and another begins, where the mortal realm touches the divine or the dead. Her presence is quiet but enduring, a constant thread running through Tamriel's history, from the ancient days of Morrowind to the turmoil of Skyrim and beyond. She doesn't appear to command armies or enforce her will directly, but she moves behind the scenes, making sure those who need guidance receive it, even if they don't understand it at first. When heroes face impossible choices or find themselves standing on the edge of disaster, Azura's influence is often what tips the balance, not through force, but through subtle insight or timely intervention. Even when she seems absent, her impact lingers, woven into the fabric of fate and memory. The Elder Scrolls themselves, mysterious artifacts that shape the past and future, are closely tied to her essence, reinforcing her role as a keeper of secrets and watcher of time. Her connection to prophecy is unique among the Daedra, and it makes her both respected and enigmatic. trusted by some mortals who understand her purpose, yet distant to those who only seek power. Her priestesses, like Erenia in Skyrim, embody this quiet strength, devoted not because they fear her, but because they believe in the grace she offers, a grace that doesn't ask for worship in exchange, but instead offers understanding and peace. Azura's story throughout the games shows a consistent theme. She values balance, endings, and the cycles of life. While others tear worlds apart to remake them, she preserves the moments between destruction and renewal, the fragile spaces where heroes rise and legends fade. That restraint, that refusal to dominate, is what sets her apart and makes her presence feel so profound even when it's barely noticed. In a world filled with gods who shout and demand, Azura whispers, guiding quietly, reminding us that not all power has to be loud or visible to be real. The idea that your fate might already be woven into a grand design she oversees adds a layer of mystery and respect to her role, as if every choice you make is part of a story she's been quietly shaping all along. And yet, she doesn't rush or force outcomes. She waits patiently, allowing mortals to walk their paths, knowing that true power often lies in acceptance rather than control. This patience, this silent watchfulness, carries a weight that resonates through the lore and the hearts of those who follow her. Azura's essence is timeless, a constant presence beneath the ever-changing skies of Tamriel, watching stars rise and fall, lives begin and end. She doesn't seek praise or worship. She simply waits and watches, always,